and welcome to the Divorce Women's Guide podcast, where we talk about the things us divorcees are thinking, but not always talking about, as we turn our divorce into the best gift we've ever been given. And I do so with a little bit of sass and a whole lot of class. I am your host, Wendy Sterling, founder of the Divorce Rehab. I am here to support you in this transition phase of your life so you can start your new best chapter on your own terms. After all, that's what I did after my own divorce. And now it is my mission to change the conversation around divorce and help you see why your divorce, like mine, was the best gift you ever received. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Divorced Woman's Guide podcast. I am so excited that you have tuned in today because I am here with my very, very dear close friend and colleague, Michelle Dempsey. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
I'm so good, and I'm so excited to be on here. I know that my listeners loved you. So now it's time to flip the script.
It is. And I know that mine adore you as well. And so for everybody tuning in today, Michelle and I are actually going to talk about something really interesting, which is how we get to stop viewing our divorce as a death. And so before we jump into our conversation, I'm going to share a little bit about Michelle with you all. So Michelle is a writer. She's a mom. She's a coach, a certified divorce specialist, speaker, and genuine girl power enthusiast. Michelle fully believes in the power of having someone by your side to help you through the uncomfortable process of divorce as a way to empower and educate, making clients stronger. And Michelle's work has been featured in various publications such as Forbes, Scary Mommy, Parents, HuffPost, and so many more. And Michelle works with women at all stages of divorce, from just deciding to end their marriage to looking for their stride in co-parenting and absolutely everything in between. So Michelle, again, thank you so much for being here. And, you know, the question that I always like to ask my guests at the beginning of each of our episodes is, you know, so many of us are doing work because of our own personal experiences, either with divorce or perhaps with a career. And I would love for you to share your story around what inspired you to do the work that you do today.
That's such a good question. And it's always my favorite to answer because I think that there is no more powerful thing in life than taking your lessons and turning them into something good. I'm an open book. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that there's nothing I really hold back, but I do so because I'm so committed to making sure that if there's one other woman out there who feels the way I used to feel about myself, about my situation, getting divorced, about the issues in my past, if I can help her see that all of that can be channeled into the greater good, then I feel like my job is done. I had a wild past, typical rough childhood, traumatic stuff happening, a lot of loss, a lot of pain, which I never dealt with, carried me into my 20s, and I was reckless because of it. I had a very anxious attachment style. I've done a lot of work in trauma and resilience, and I've learned that this is normal for people who had been through what I had been through. So what is an anxious attachment style? That means I attached myself to anybody just out of fear of being alone or having to really face myself and my own issues. So for me, a bad relationship was better than no relationship. So I was kind of in this wheel of toxicity always. And I truly believe you attract what you can handle. So I was a mess. I was attracting a mess. Then I got married. I had a major car accident in New York, where I'm from, at the beginning of 2012. I was bedridden and broke everything from the neck down. I was basically just in bed for months thinking about, what the hell am I going to do with my life now? And on a whim, I healed. I did my physical therapy. I got on a plane and I moved to Miami, which, run away from your problems, they're going to catch up to you. I met my ex-husband within like months. We were engaged 3 months later. And then it was like a slow, like when you watch the train wreck in slow motion and it's like coming to hit the car in the middle of the tracks, that's exactly what it was. And then the buck kind of stopped there for me with my first marriage. I was faced with all of my ugliest parts of me. You know, I truly believe people bring out the best or the worst in you. My ex and I were really good about bringing out the worst in each other. I will not say that our divorce was his fault. I was just as much to blame because I was unhealed and looking for him to heal me and didn't know what to do with that. I don't blame him. But ultimately, I knew after doing my work that I needed to do that this relationship would not serve me. And I moved on. I'm very good at moving on. I had moved on from so much in my life in the past. My attitude was kind of like, oh, I'm built for this. I've dealt with worse than divorce. But then I was the first in my friend group to be divorced. As supported and loved as I knew I was still very lonely. You know, I like to say I felt like I was all alone on Divorce Island, with nobody, you know, who knew how to get there to visit, because it was like a scary place that nobody really wanted to deal with. And I started putting my feelings out into the writing that I do for the publications I write for, onto Instagram. And all of a sudden these women were like flocking, like, oh my God, nobody's saying this. Nobody's talking about this. Thank you. This is how I feel. So I developed a community, and that lent itself to the coaching. You know, I was getting hundreds of DMs every week with questions I didn't know how to answer, legal questions, you know, questions about legalities in different states. So I started the podcast where I could bring on experts to talk about it. And then I thought, screw it, I'll become an expert too. So I got my coaching certification. I became a certified divorce specialist. I have never felt more settled into my work. Like, this is ultimately where I've been meant to be my whole life. And it's a beautiful feeling. So it all came from a place of wanting to help the woman who loses her marriage and doesn't know what the hell to do next and wants to gain it all back and feel powerful again.
Yeah, no. And, you know, I love your story, and you and I have very similar mission statements in terms of the work that we do. And, you know, I have been following you for quite some time myself. And, you know, I'm so grateful for you and the work that you do. You know, and you just said something that kind of, I think, segues nicely into our topic today, is that, you know, yes, divorce does involve a loss, many losses actually. And even though you do experience, you know, the stages of grief as you're, you know, going through the healing process of your divorce, it's still not the same as death. And yet, you know, I almost feel like as a society, we're always playing the comparison game, right? It's always trying to equate to something else to justify feelings or to justify actions. And so, you know, what I'd love to start our conversation with today is really around, you know, why divorce does get to stand on its own, right? Versus comparing it to someone dying.
Yeah. So I love that question. And I always say, yes, divorce is like a death. It's the death of a marriage, but you're not dead. You're just divorced. Like, there's a big difference. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that difference. And woe is me, I'm divorced. I'm just going to shrivel up and die alone now. That's the attitude that I try and shift all the time. But I've had so many clients say, and I understand, not that I think it's a nice thing to say, but I wish he was just dead. It would be easier than
I've heard that
feeling
before.
divorce. And here's why. Here's why death and divorce are completely two separate things. Death is final. There's a finality. There's no signing a paper and then getting angry text messages for the rest of your co-parenting life. There's no burying in the ground, visiting a headstone once a month. This person is very much still alive, going on to live a new life without you. You're going on to live a new life without them. There's going to be lots of pain and resentment caught up in the mix of that. And, you know, it's very difficult to grieve the loss of a relationship when you're not actually like saying goodbye to a person. You're just saying goodbye to what that person meant to you. So they're very, very different in my mind. But I will always say, I will honor that divorce is the death of a marriage. But when I have these clients who come to me that are just can't get out of bed and I'm like, okay, well, are you breathing? Yes. Is the blood pumping through your veins? Yes. Okay, then I think that we can be successful here because you're still alive, and we have to find the value in life after this divorce.
Right.
All of us listening to this and all of us on the planet have experienced the end of something, the end of a friendship, the end of a job. You lose a job, you get laid off, you have a career shift. You know, when you lose a friendship, you're not like, well, I'll never be friends with anybody again. It's sad, it's happened to me. You take the lessons from it. Okay, maybe this friend wasn't as authentic as you thought she was, or maybe you weren't as good of a friend as you intended to be. And you take the lessons and you move on and find new friends. And it's the same with divorce. You know, just because you lose your job, you're not going to give up working forever. You're going to go out and find something that suits you better. So I've always had that view on divorce is like, okay, it's a new beginning. And I've done new beginnings so many times where that feeling came naturally to me. And I love helping people see like, you know, oh, but I'm not going to be with him anymore. Right. But now you get to create a life you love with somebody who's actually right for you. That's the other side of that. So it's all about reframing the perspective.
Yeah. And it's, one of the things that when I was prepping for our conversation today, and I was kind of thinking about this topic myself, is that, it's not like when somebody dies, you get to see them again in another way, right? Reframing your relationship with your spouse. With divorce, I mean, you truly have the opportunity to not only create a life for yourself afterwards, but you also get to redefine what that relationship looks like. So it's almost like you have kind of a second chance at creating something different that, marriage wasn't allowing the two of you to be your best selves. But then on the other side, right, you're able to actually live your life separate from that person. But then if you choose to want to integrate them back into your life in some capacity, you have that option versus, like you said, with a death, like you go see a headstone or you pray at home, like however you connect with, deceased relatives. It's such a different, there's a physical aspect that's still available to you.
Absolutely. And so this person is still very much alive. They're just not a part of your life anymore. And that's a bitter pill to swallow. Here you are having to separate your feelings, whether they're good, bad, you still love him, or you just really hate him or her, and parent with them and put all of that to the side. That is a true test of strength and grit, because it's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. And, one of the things that that's coming up for me right now as we're talking too, is that, divorce is, when we look back on our own experiences, right? Like you can look back and say like, oh, there were signs, oh, we probably should have never gotten married, or probably should have ended it years earlier. Or perhaps there was a discussion about whether that was the right decision as a couple for you. There's an inevitability around divorce versus with death. Granted, if there is an illness associated, yes, there is some inevitability around that too. But with divorce, it's so different than, with a death, right? Like there's some prepping that can happen, right, with divorce, and there's work that goes into that becoming the finality, versus with death, sometimes it's a lot quicker, right?
Right. Like you can avoid divorce, you can't avoid death. And sometimes, it becomes unavoidable depending on the circumstances. And, I'm in no way suggesting that you shouldn't grieve it, because you have to grieve it to be able to move on. But you also have to see that there is life after, I give the example of my mom. My mom and dad were married for 10 years. For 8 of the years, he was living a double life with somebody else and lots of other women. And when they split, my mom was only like 32, in the prime of her life, such a babe, devastated. Here she is in the States with no job, trying to raise 2 little babies. And this man just like went off somewhere. She rebounded. She got back on her feet. She got a job. She, went through the divorce process. My parents' divorce took 10 years, by the way. That's how toxic it was. And then she fell in love with her divorce attorney. And it was like fairy tale love, like client meets divorce attorney, they fall in love, then they were together, and he was amazing. He was the dad I always knew was supposed to be my dad. And when he was, just before he turned 60, I was in my early 20s, he passed away. He had cancer, and it was gut-wrenching for my mom. She was 48. And for a couple of months, I mean, she was still gorgeous, in the prime of her life, like fully able to function on her own now. She was crushed to the point of like, I'm done. I'll never date again. I'll never be with anyone again. How could I have been through something like this again? I mean, she cried. She was home alone a lot, and it was devastating for me in my 20s to know that. And I remember having a conversation with her, like, no, it doesn't end here, Ma. Like, you're not dead. Like, life isn't over. Please, you can't. I just didn't want her to just give up,
Right.
so young and not have the opportunity to be loved again just because she experienced such a loss. Lo and behold, years later, she met my now stepdad, and they're like the world's greatest couple, and they like don't do anything apart. They even go pick up dry cleaning together. It's just a testament to shifting your perspective and not giving up just because it's been really hard and really sad.
Hey, it's Wendy here. I wanted to take a quick break from the conversation to let you know about another free event I'm hosting on Tuesday, September 29th about divorce and narcissism. If you're somebody who is divorcing a narcissist or someone with narcissistic characteristics, this is something you don't want to miss. You will learn what you need to know before you divorce a narcissist, how to successfully negotiate with one, learn financial hacks, how to set boundaries and co-parent with a narcissist, and so much more. The event is free and it's live, and all you have to do is register today by visiting divorceandnarcissism.com. Again, the event is live on Tuesday, September 29th, so block your calendar today. And now let's jump back into the conversation. And I think that that's a beautiful testament that is so inspiring too, right? Is that, we do have the opportunity once we do get ourselves picked up and off the ground, that we do have the opportunity, there's hope, right? There's hope associated with your divorce, and the opportunities that are on the other side are huge. As you were talking, it also made me think of something around, with a divorce, like you still have like the memories of your childhood, right? The memories of your parents together, or just the memories of you being with your spouse. Like you still get to keep those alive between the two of you with, let's say your daughter, right? My ex-husband and I, we get to keep our family memories alive with our kids, versus like when somebody passes away, it takes a lot more work, right, to keep those memories
Yeah,
from fading.
yeah, for sure.
You
It's
know, that was something that just came up for me too.
well,
And say that again.
it's a great point. Yes.
Yeah, right. And, and even though, what I always say to my clients too is that, my kids asked me, they wanted me to keep, certain items from our wedding. They wanted me to keep our wedding album. Not that I would have done something with them, but, they want to have all of that. They like to revisit. They like to look at old pictures of family vacations that we did together. And, being able to keep those memories alive for my children, from storytelling on both sides. Like I can't tell you, there's so many stories I wish I knew, right, from relatives who have now passed away, that I'm like, I wish I had asked more questions, because now you don't have that opportunity, versus, with a divorce, you do.
Yeah. And I think it's important to that point that you are like what you're doing, being open with your kids. Like, yes, there was a life once where we were together and we loved
Right.
each other. And that's something I talk about with Bella too. My daughter, she's only 5.5, but in an age appropriate way, we talk about, she'll ask me questions about our wedding, or what song did we dance to, or, what did we used to do when we were married? Where did we go eat? Did you and Daddy come here when you guys were married? And she has such a clear understanding of, we're her parents, we love her, we just didn't work well together under the same roof. And now that she has other divorced friends, she accepts it much more. And I mean, divorced friends with divorced parents.
Right.
No, she's 5 going on 35, but she doesn't have her own divorced friends. But she, it's nice that we can have that conversation, because I've seen the opposite, where parents or moms are scared to talk to their kids about life before, because maybe it'll hurt them, but it's reality. And it just shows another level of adaptability. Like life changes. You never know what it's going to throw at you. So if you can come out of something like a divorce and keep going and keep a nice relationship and focus on the kids, because that's what matters, it's a great lesson.
Yeah. Well, and I've also said, with death, right, there's a ceremony that
Mhm.
celebrates and concludes somebody's life, right? And with divorce, I had a divorce party, legit had a divorce party, because I wanted a ceremony to sort of commemorate and sort of kick off this
I did
next
too. My
new
friend,
life.
my friends took me for Mexican. I dressed up like a raging like prostitute. No, I'm just kidding. But I was like heels to the sky, like boobs out. I mean, I wasn't even single anymore, but I was like, woohoo, let's party. And we went for Mexican food because that's my jam. But why not?
Amazing.
Why not celebrate?
I did. I mean, there was an 80s, this pre-COVID, there was an 80s concert happening down in LA at, like, near Staples Center at LA Live, and all these 80s bands were coming together. So I made all my friends dress up in 80s outfits, and we like had a little, pre-festivity here at my house, and then we all went down for the concert, and it was so much fun. And to me, like, being able to create something similar, to be able to, like, it's a celebration of life, right? Like, it was a celebration of me being single, me starting out a new chapter on my terms, right? And getting this amazing second chance at having a life that was mine, that I chose, that, was coming from a place of confidence. And divorce doesn't end your life. Divorce starts something amazing. I mean,
It's an
look at you.
opportunity. Yeah, thank you. It's like our friend Susan Guthrie always says, divorce is an opportunity, and it is. If you have the mindset of, okay, I get to do something new now, it serves you so much better than, oh my God, I can't believe I have to live this divorced life. Like
Yeah.
all it is just a marital status. It's not a change in who you are as a human. It doesn't change your value or your worth or your ability to function. It's literally like just a change on your Facebook from, married to divorced.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I was talking about actually this week, many people who might be listening or follow me on social media, I am in a cast. I tore a ligament in my ankle. And one of the things that came up for me when I had to go to the doctor's office that was very glaring is, you check that single box or you check the divorced box, right? And it's like, there isn't
Why?
exactly.
Like, why do we have to do that?
Exactly, right? It's not like there's a deceased box, right? Are you deceased when you're divorced? Like, what's the difference? Like,
Right.
what's the difference between single and divorced? And, like, part of me is like, so do you treat a divorced person differently than you treat a
A single.
single person? Is there something?
And also there's a box for widowed. And it's like, what, like if you're there for a sprained ankle or broken ankle, I don't understand what the relevance is. Like it has always fascinated me. Same when they ask your race or your gender. It's like, what, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, statistically, maybe for them to see how diverse their practice is, but I just was so confused because I'm like, at no point during my X-ray or the doctor coming in and evaluating my foot did it matter if I was married or single, or, like, I have insurance, my name's on the insurance card.
Let's pay the bill, don't worry.
Right, I know. I'm like, I will pay you, that you process it through the insurance. It's just, it's just kind of like what's coming up for me around this too, is that, like, well, there might as well be a deceased box at this point, because there's, it's just, it's like so ridiculous to me. And I hear so many of my clients talk about that. That it triggers them, and it makes them start bawling, because it's another way that society likes to shine the light and make us feel different, when there's nothing different from us other than we just don't have a plus one anymore.
Right. And it takes somebody who is divorced to understand that. I recorded a podcast last week with a friend of mine who recently signed divorce papers in her underwear from home because COVID. And it was just like so funny to her. And so we were talking about it. But anyway, I said to her, congratulations on your divorce. And then I was like, oh, is that even the right thing to say? And she's like, you know what? All of my divorced friends have said congratulations, and all of my non-divorced friends have said I'm sorry. And so you really can't, I mean, she's like, sorry. And that was my response too, was like, what are you upset about? Like, I'm good. I
Yeah.
think, people don't know what they don't know. And despite, what the doctor's office asks you to check, you know, you're supposed to, and I'm using air quotes for those who are not watching and listening, you're supposed to be all sad and devastated after a split, but like, there's no like rule book for this. There's no one that says like, get in bed, lay down and cry and feel sorry for yourself for 18 months or else you are not really divorced. So, you know,
Right.
I think people who don't understand divorce just have this expectation of you have to be sad and I'll apologize for that. When those of us who have been through it know just how much power there is in that opportunity and recreation.
Yeah, and you make an interesting point because, we say so many times that the comments that other people say to us, it has nothing to do with us. It has to do with their discomfort, right? And it's
Mhm.
almost like the same thing when people try to equate, or at least what I'm thinking in this moment is that, it's almost like equating divorce with death, right? It's like you're trying to equate it to something tangible that you're familiar with so that it becomes less uncomfortable for you, or that you think that there is a rule book and a playbook that you're supposed to follow versus just understanding that there is none. I mean, my path was my path. Your path was your path. Everybody listening is on their own path. There isn't, I say all the time, like if there was a magic pill that I could create that worked for everybody going through divorce that they could pop and the next day be fine, we'd all be millionaires at this point, right? And it doesn't work that way.
I'll tell you the journey, and it's always in hindsight. Like for me, I wouldn't change a single step that I took to get me to where I am today. I needed my first marriage to become the woman I am today. I needed my first marriage to help me shift into the mom I am now. I needed my first marriage to learn the lessons and heal so that I can enjoy this new life that I've created. And, for the women who are listening who feel like, life is over because of their divorce, like give it a year, wait till next year when you wake up and you're like, damn, look how much I've done in a year. I didn't think I can make it. And, it's always in hindsight that you look back and you see, you know what, this journey was worth it.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I say that too. I mean, I also look at my boys, I'm sure when you look at Bella, I look at my boys and always say to them all the time that I wouldn't, if their dad and I hadn't been together, I wouldn't have them. And I get to celebrate what we were through them every single day. And I wouldn't want my life to be any other way. And similarly, I wouldn't have this career had I not been through,
Right.
my divorce. I was in corporate America working in ad sales. I was, all about fashion and beauty, which, don't get me wrong, I still love fashion and beauty, but I was able to really create this whole new business and serve so many people, all of you listening, and, make wonderful new friends like you in our incredible divorce community. It's just, again, I say this to everybody listening, you've got to start thinking about the silver linings, or as I always say, the gifts in your divorce. And there are no gifts in death, but there are gifts in divorce, in my opinion.
Absolutely. That's it, folks. That's the magic right there.
Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience before we wrap?
What do I want to share with the audience? Vote. We're coming up on, this little election thing. You have no right to complain if you don't go out and exercise your right to vote. The other thing I'd like to share is that I have started a membership community for women moving on who may not be in the position to work one-on-one with a coach, but still want to reap the benefits of the knowledge that I share with all of my clients and with my community. So I've created an online membership community where membership gives you access to weekly tips and strategies and advice from divorce experts, and a monthly workshop for free, and lots of opportunities to connect with me and the rest of the members in the community. And it's been really a beautiful thing to put together and watch grow. So you can find that at momsmovingon.com. You can find me at themichelledempsey.com. My podcast is Moms Moving On. It streams basically everywhere. Wendy was a beautiful guest. You can listen to our episode. And that's it. I would like to offer your listeners a free 15-minute consult if they're interested in chatting with me. I will ask them, though, to be mindful of the 15 minutes because I can chat for hours and hours. So
Can't
don't
we
book me if
all?
you're in a rush. Right. And that's really it. But I loved being on with you. I loved continuing our conversation.
I know, me too. And I'm so grateful that, you do the work that you do. And, thank you for offering everybody listening the opportunity to jump on a call. And all of that information will be available to you guys in the notes section. All of the links are going to be available there to you guys as well. And Michelle, as always, such an absolute pleasure to spend time with you and to see you.
Likewise, you're beautiful inside and out, and you're radiating
Oh.
happiness. So it is true. You're divorced, not dead.
Definitely not. Thank you. The same to you and everybody listening. I hope that you got some amazing wisdom from this podcast episode today. I know that I sure did. And I'm so appreciative of your time tuning in, sending you all tons of love, light, and joy. And I will see you guys and talk to you in the next episode. Have a beautiful day. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorced Woman's Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this episode with someone you know or spread the word on social media. This is how I reach more divorcees around the world and provide them with the support they need to create their next best life. And I would also love to continue the conversation with you. So please friend me on Facebook, join my private Facebook group, The Divorce Rehab, and follow me on Instagram at Divorce Rehab with Wendy. I'll see you next time.